What's the likelihood that there now will be repeat elections in some of the major cities, Istanbul, for example?
To be clear, President Erdogan did not openly call for a rerun of municipal elections across the country, but he implied very strongly that he would like to see a renewal of the race in Istanbul in particular, which is the biggest city that his governing party seems to have lost, just judging by the result of the partial recount that's been going on since last Sunday. What is the likelihood of seeing renewed elections? Is hard to answer because of the lack of an open call by Erdogan. Having said that, it's quite difficult to imagine Turkey's High Electoral Board going against this implicit call by President Erdogan, and they are expected to make a decision on this matter within the next three working days. So by the end of this week, we should know whether or not there's going to be a renewal of elections in Istanbul.
Now, the significance of this is that if there is a new election, the suggestion is there that the decision might be reversed. If that happens, Onur, what are the political and economic consequences?
Okay, even today's implicit call for a renewal of elections was source of concern for investors in Turkish assets, and you could see that just by judging by the reaction in the lira and other assets right after the Turkish president called for what he called for. Now, what does that mean is that this was a source of concern for investors for quite a few reasons, but among them, one was very important. Despite everything else that happened in Turkish political scene over the last few years, the ballot box was kind of a sacred spot, sacred area, where no one really tried to question its legitimacy and the outcome of the ballot box process. This is the first time the Turkish leader, the Turkish president, is openly contesting the outcome, citing irregularities such as stealing of votes without really providing much evidence, and we didn't really see much evidence in terms of any electoral fraud since the election day. But Erdogan seemed today very adamant that the result was somehow rigged, and just the fact that the margin was so small between his candidate and the opposition candidate really merited renewed elections for some reason.
And of course, one of the knock-on effects, as you're saying, is that the recent stabilisation for the lira has now gone by the wayside. Let's bring in Damian Sassower. Damian, 1.2% weaker once again today, 5.69. Not a massive move, but there is a sort of a knock-on effect that the Turkish central bank has had to do something now.
Well, you're absolutely right. What's really causing that, in addition to the obvious with the elections, is going to be the fact that they just basically opened up the one-week repo rate, right? So they had shut that down for 3 weeks preceding the election. They just opened it up, and that's basically weighing on the lira because it's akin to a 150 basis point rate cut, right? So at 24% versus 25.5% on the overnight rate, you get a rate cut, and who's really going to suffer here? It's going to be the banks, the local banks. Local banks going to have to raise their deposit rates because effectively the offshore swap market has now been basically, it's lost its credibility. It's been run off. So, it's going to be interesting to see some of these Turkish banks and how they fare. We're looking at earnings coming through for a lot of them. We're looking at things like loan losses versus their provisioning, and things like that. And what you're finding is that their cushion to protect against lira volatility rising is really quite small. And so we're going to see some real pressure, I think, in the next weeks on the Turkish banks.